Okay, let's explore the setting. So, when you are looking at creating a setting in your narrative writing, you need to think about the 6 questions again. Okay, so let's think about the stories that we have read, the BFG, Because of Winn-Dixie, and also The Miraculous Adventures of Edward Tulane. Now, obviously, these stories, it's very important to understand where these stories take place. The BFG was centrally located in London. So obviously, if we had tried to put that story in America, it wouldn't have made as much sense because we don't have a queen. Okay, um, the things about that setting, the way that it was set, it mattered where it took place. It was a very important component. Okay. Also, you need to think about when a story takes place. This goes back to the miraculous adventures of Edward Tulane. It was very important to the fact that this story could not have taken place at another time zone or another era in time, because even though we do take cruise ships nowadays, how many of us have ever had to take a cruise ship that lasted for a couple of weeks just to get from America to Europe? No, we would hop on a plane, take 8 hours, we're done. So that time frame was very important, but also some of the characteristics of Edward Tulane were very important for that time frame. The Great Depression and eras and things like that were what was critical to understand the emotions that Edward went through in his story. So where a story takes place, when a story takes place, are critical components that you need to think about when you talk about a story. If you think about the stories of the I Survived series, would a story that is taking place during Hurricane Katrina make sense to tell back during the 1920s? Well, no, because Hurricane Katrina did not occur during that time frame. So you have to be very specific. But that brings me to another point. What is the weather like? Okay. Some stories, the weather is very important. If you think about Because of Winn-Dixie, Winn-Dixie had the pathological fear of storms. So weather was a very important part of the setting. Now, it was during the summertime, it was mostly beautiful sunny days, but we know just from living here in Georgia that our weather in the evenings during the summertime, we can get some violent storms because of the heat. So that was a very important part to the component of the story, to the setting, because without that, there was no reason that Winn-Dixie needed to escape during that final scene when the preacher in India Opal went looking for him. Okay, so your fourth question you need to think about are social conditions. Okay, so what this means is what's going on in our environment. Now, right now, we're in the middle of the COVID-19 quarantines and stuff. So if you were to write a story during this time frame, you would need to make sure that that's something to consider, because there are things that are about this time that impact how we would react. For example, social distancing. That's something that before this whole situation, we never would have even thought about having to keep a 6 foot distance. What does it mean to shelter in place? Those are conditions that apply toward our setting that we would have to consider if we were writing a story about today. So also think about with your setting, your landscape and your environment. Would a story set for India Opal and Because of Winn-Dixie? Now that story was set in the South. Okay, she was able to ride her bike through town and stuff like that. So you have to think about what her environment was. She lived in a small town in the South. Would that have made as much sense if she was living in New York City? The environment would have been completely different. Also, if you were to tell a story about somebody living on the beach, but yet you put them in the middle of Colorado in the mountains, the stories would not make sense, would it? So that's another part of the setting that you have to make a conscious effort to put. Okay, and your final question you need to be thinking about is what special details make that setting vivid? Okay, in other words, what is it that makes it come to life? One of the things that I always think about with this, and I'm going to go back to Because of Winn-Dixie, is the pick and save. where they're actually having the church services. The way that the author described the tiles on the floor spelling out the word pick and save, and just the environment of that, convenience store being turned into a church, the way they have to use the lawn chairs, bringing it into the setting, that to me was very vivid. I can sit there and close my eyes and I can imagine going into any store around here, a convenience store, let's say like a dollar store or a Dollar General, and imagine it cleared out of everything, and all of a sudden there is a podium and lawn chairs and somebody has turned it into a church service. That's something I could visualize because it's a very vivid situation. So that's what makes a great author great, is being able to focus on the setting as well as the characters, making it be a central part of that story. Okay, let's go to the next page. All right, here are some clues that help understand the setting. Think about your 5 senses: sight, sound, smell, touch, taste. If you could see it, if you could hear it, if you could smell it, if you could touch it, if you could taste it, you need to be able to describe it in that setting. Okay, so if you look out your window today, what do you see? Can you describe what you see out that window, but not just with adjectives, but without being able to step out there, without being able to step outside, look out your window, what do you see? Is it something, can you describe it to where somebody could feel it without seeing it? Okay, so I look outside my window and I see trees, but I'm not going to just say, oh, I see trees. I was like, I could see the lush green shelter of the shade trees with its beautiful green leaves that blow through the breeze. So here I am describing that what I see. So I'm not just saying, oh, I see a tree. Be able to do that description, be able to describe how you see that tree. Okay, then you have your sound. Close your eyes for just a minute and listen to the sounds in your house. How would you describe those sounds to somebody who cannot hear them? Let's say you had to type that description up, or you had to call your teacher and tell her what you hear in your house. How would you describe them? Right now I hear my dryer and it's, drying the clothes, but how could I describe that sound? The tumbling of the clothes, the way that every now and then a button or a zipper will hit the metal and I hear that clinking sound. Okay, for those of you who are not able to listen to my my mystery storyteller of the Saturdays and Tea Cakes, when I told that story by Lester Laminack, you could hear the sounds of him pedaling. You could hear the sounds of the metal glider creaking. So you need to be able to hear that in the words that you write. And then you have your smells. I want everybody to stop for just a minute and think about, what does it smell like when you walk into a pizza place? The smells of the tomato sauce and the melted cheese and the baking crust, all those beautiful, rich, delicious smells. Imagine describing those in the setting and making that a part of your story. And then you have touch. So touch can be anything. Close your eyes, put your hand down on your favorite stuffed animal or your pet cat or your pet dog. What does it feel like? The softness of the fur, the cold, wet noses. Maybe if it's a dog, it's probably licking. It's got that warm tongue that's kind of a little bit just tough. Those things, those feelings add to your story. They add to the description of where that story takes place. And finally, taste. Taste is, in a way, the hardest to do, but in a way it's not. So imagine that you just put the sweetest strawberry on your tongue. Imagine that sweetness. Well, then again, you might not like strawberries. Think about a piece of candy. How would you describe that taste to somebody who's never had a piece of candy. Okay, that's what great authors do. They think about all 5 of those senses and how somebody who has never tasted, who has never seen, who has never heard, who has never smelled or never touched what they want to tell them about. And they have to describe it. That's what makes a beautiful, vivid setting. Okay, let's go to the next page. Okay, so let's explore the setting a little bit. So when you are talking about your narratives, okay, you need to think about the clues that our author writes. Deep in the swampy waters. Well, what does that tell us? What does that clue tell us? Where does that story take place? That tells us it takes place in a swamp. It's geographical location. All right, long ago during the American Revolutionary War. What does that tell us about the setting? Could it have taken place yesterday? No, that was during the American Revolutionary War. That was back in the 1700s. Okay? And then in the part of the city where all the houses look like mansions. Okay? Can that be any part of the city? No, that's telling us our social conditions. Where in the story? Would it make a difference if we had talked about the part of the city with the high-rise buildings or the part of the city with fields all around them? Those are your social conditions. Then you also have the weather. Snow covered the trees and the houses. I know we don't get a lot of that here in Georgia, but we do occasionally. And it's a different scene when we look out our door and we see snow-covered yards than we do in the summertime when it's hot and glistening from the morning dew. I mean, the weather makes a difference. Okay, so what about on her desk beside her book? Okay, think about it. Look around you. If you were to describe where you're sitting, you would need to look at your immediate surroundings. Okay, and then finally, early one morning around 7 a.m. So what time of the day is this occurring in? Does the story need that specific detail? Sometimes they do. Because if I'm talking about how I was startled awake by something in the middle of the night, then yes, my time of day is going to be very important. Because why would I be sleeping in the middle of the day? No, if I was startled awake, it would need to be during the middle of the night. All right, so what does the following setting clue describe? And I'm going to give you just a minute to think about this. The sky above lightened up as rays of sunshine peeked through the clouds. So what it describes to me it sounds like a great spring day where you've got those blue skies with those big white puffy clouds, which we all know are called cumulus clouds now. And I could see that sun shining bright. It's probably a Saturday and I might be at the park and maybe even having a picnic with my kids while they're over there playing baseball, playing catch together. I'm setting out the picnic and just having a glorious day. That's what that one sentence takes me to. So you have to think about when you're putting these sentences in your narrative story, where are you taking your reader? Where are you transporting them with your description? All right, let's go to the next page. So, same thing. Looking at those settings, we have to think about what mood does our words imply. So going back to that deep in the swampy waters, well, we know it's taking place in the swamp. That's our geographical location. But if somebody's telling me swampy waters, immediately it kind of goes to a little bit of a scary or a mysterious feel to it. That's the mood that I'm describing, okay? Whereas if we talk about our immediate surroundings, the desks were all covered with tests and pencils and books, okay? That to me immediately transports me to something that is serious. Like I have to be thinking about what's going on. Obviously, if the desk is covered with all these test pencils and books, then this is something I need to take serious because studying is important. Okay, but what about the room was plastered with bright ribbons and colorful balloons? Yep, that's cheerful and happy. Obviously, there's a party going on, and that sounds like it's going to be a great time. Okay, so not only does our setting tell us where the story takes place, but it also sets the mood for what's going to happen in the story. All right, so again, going back to that sky was bright and sunny and air was filled with the sounds of a chorus of birds singing in perfect harmony. Still, I'm right back there at that picnic with my kids. I'm right back there on that beautiful Saturday, spring day. Everything is amazing. Social distancing is over. I'm having a great time. That's immediately where that sentence transports me. Okay? So when you're setting up your settings in your story, what adventure are you going to take your reader on? That's what you need to be thinking about. Going to the next page. So how can changing details about the setting change a story? So let's look at this. The day of his 10th birthday had finally arrived, and Ricky couldn't help but stare at all of the colorful presents waiting to be opened. As he began to set up the tables and chairs underneath the trees, he noticed the clouds above beginning to thicken and turn gray. He could feel the coolness of the rain as it got closer, then splat. His excitement washed away as the drops fell. So there's a lot of clues in this story, okay? Think about, what do the clues in the text tell you about the setting? Well, we know that it's his 10th birthday and there's colorful presents. That means he's at a birthday party. Underneath the trees, feel the coolness of the rain splat. It's outside and it's about to start raining. Okay? Couldn't help but stare. He's so excited. It's an awesome time. Guys, think about your birthday. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it a fun day? Okay? The day of his 10th birthday. So it's a specific day of the year. And a 10th birthday is a very important birthday. Okay? So looking at all of this, these details tell us that this should be Ricky's best day of the year. He's finally reached his 10th birthday. He's double digits. It's awesome. And here comes the rain. Here's what's going to spoil his fun. Okay? The best day of his life so far, and it's about to get rained out. Those details, even though all we have talked about is the setting, we haven't even gotten into his story yet, has set up something that should be so exciting that is now going to be ruined. All right, let's go to the next page. All right, how can I rewrite the story with a different setting? So here's the example that we're going to give, and I think you guys know where this is about to head. Okay, so the day of his 10th birthday had finally arrived, and Ricky couldn't help but stare at all the colorful presents waiting to be opened. As he helped set up tables and chairs underneath the tree, he noticed the clouds begin to thicken and turn gray. He could feel the coolness of rain as it got closer. "Go away, rain, please," he whispered. Then splat! His excitement washed away as the drops fell. If I change the setting from the outside to the inside, I could rewrite this total story. So here's my example. The day of his 10th birthday had finally arrived, and Ricky couldn't help but stare at all the beautiful, colorful presents waiting to be opened. As he set up the tables and chairs in the community center, he noticed the clouds begin to thicken. He could see the rain coming across the yard through the window. "Thank goodness we decided to have the party indoors," he thought. Then splat! He heard the drops hit the roof, but he didn't worry because his party was safely inside. See, that completely changes the story and the emotions and the mood just by changing the setting. All right, let's go to the next page. Now it's your turn. I want you to take the same story and I want you to change the setting that it's a warm, sunny day and the rain does not occur. Okay, so how would his story change if he had that beautiful, sunny day? All right, guys. Have a great day.